Hi, welcome to my first story time. I have done Working the Walls of a Haunted House preview, but I haven't started that story time. So this is technically my first story time for this channel. I think it's so cool. Story time is so cool because, especially if people watch it before they go to bed, because it's like being a little kid and getting read a story, and except for it's like more adult version and not like corny princesses and the prince saves the princess and all that bullshit. Anyways, this story is about my first ovarian cyst, and like I'm gonna tell you just now, I tell it like it is, and I don't hold back details. So I mean, like, you know, mature audiences, please. I never knew what ovarian cysts were before my first experience. They're usually genetic. My mom had never experienced them. I never heard of people experiencing them. I had no idea what it was. And I really wasn't having like really big signs or symptoms of one coming really. So the only big sign, which shows I had a really large cyst, which is scary to even think about, is a couple months before my rupture. Sorry, gotta make sure I don't got nothing in my teeth, But a couple months before my rupture, and honestly, like not even I don't mean couple in like 2 or 3. I mean couple in like 8, 9. I started feeling this heaviness in my stomach, and it got to the point where like the last 5 months before my rupture, I couldn't lay on my back. And I kept Googling, like, I feel something heavy in my stomach. And, crazy stuff always comes up. Nothing really came up, but you're pregnant. I'm like, I know I'm not pregnant. So I constantly I couldn't lay on my back. When I say it felt like heavy, it wasn't heavy like a discomfort heavy. It was heavy like there was a brick in my stomach. And even though that's uncomfortable and it's discomfort, it wasn't pain, like stomach pain. It was like heavy, like it felt like something was in my stomach. And I brought it up to my doctor when I went to like my regular doctor's appointment. She didn't seem concerned about it. And she's like, maybe it's just around, the time that you get your cycle and it just feels heavy. Or, some people like feel heavy in their uterus, when they ovulate. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. It's nothing to worry about. But it had gotten to the point where I would not sleep on my back just because of the heaviness on my stomach. And, made me think, like, am I drinking lead or something? Because you know how sometimes lead can, like, make things feel heavier than they are. Like, some people who had severe lead poisoning couldn't put on heavy blankets because it felt so heavy on them. And it, like, wasn't that. And so, my mind started running. But after a while, I just ignored it because I'm like, I'm not having any other symptoms. I'm still alive. Like, so it's not a big deal. So anyways, that had became so normal to me. I ignored it. It didn't seem like it was getting worse. I just still couldn't sleep on my back. And this one day, just normal. When I say out of nowhere, like no signs, no symptoms, nothing. I get home and I sit on the couch and I think I'm eating something. And I get up and just this, I can't even describe the pain. I can't even describe how it came in. It wasn't even like a rush of pain. It was just this instant pain. It was so painful. I was concerned for my life. Like, I was like, something has seriously went wrong. I was really concerned. I said, and it was to the point where it was no question of should I go to the hospital, or should I call a family member, or should I act? It was to the point where should I call an ambulance, or am I going to go to the hospital? The only reason I considered driving myself to the hospital is because I am 2 blocks away from 3 major hospitals. It's kind of like a neighborhood of hospitals, and I'm very fortunate to be so close. That's why I like my location. So I knew it was only 2 blocks. Like, it's only 2 blocks. So I couldn't stand. I couldn't walk. I was in so much pain. I was just crying. And for some reason, I knew it was in my reproductive area. And it's strange that I knew that, because usually, like, when you have stomach pains, you just generalize your stomach. You don't know if it's your actual stomach or your small intestines or your large intestines or your appendix, or, if you're a woman, your ovaries or your uterus. You don't know. You just generalize it as your stomach. But it was a very specific location of pain. It wasn't all over here. It was specifically like near my uterus. And my first thing that the first thing that came to thought is my uterus is collapsing, like it's falling out. And that does happen. I'm not being crazy. I was watching a episode on TV, and I know, yeah, TV has crazy stuff, but like a woman's uterus collapsed, and I've heard many stories of people's uterus collapsing. Like, it's not a rare thing, especially after a woman gives birth. That wasn't my case, but some people's uteruses just collapse, due to age or whatever it may be. But like, a lot of people's uteruses fall out after they give birth. Like, I thought that happened to Kim K, where the placenta got stuck to the uterus and something like that. And it's another girl YouTuber who talked about how her uterus fell out during labor, and they pushed it back in, and now she can't have a vaginal birth, but she can have a C-section. Anyways, so that's what ran to my head. I'm like, my uterus is collapsing. And so all these thoughts, like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to have kids, blah, 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 are like running through my mind as I'm slowly making my way to my car outside. And remember, I can barely walk. I cannot stand up straight. I'm bent at a 90-degree angle. And everything's just running through my head at once. And so I finally get in the car, and I get to the hospital, and I'm just freaking. I'm trying not to get myself in a panic attack because all these things are running through my head. And the only reason I decided to drive to the hospital is because nothing was coming out. Like, I wasn't bleeding or gushing anything, and so I figured, like, let me just drive. But I couldn't find parking, and it was just freaking me out because, I live in the city, those, parking structures, and I couldn't figure out, like, which ones were for the doctors and stuff and which ones were for the patients. Most emergency patients get dropped off at the door or come via ambulance, but I was driving myself. And so it's a piece of hair on my fucking lip. Okay, that was really bothering me. Anyways, so I'm like freaking out, and I'm like, I just start bawling, crying because I can't find parking. I'm like, how some things, the longer you wait, the more hard it can be to solve. Like, how some people have to get something amputated because they were in freezing water for 15 seconds longer than they should have been, or they didn't get medical attention when they should have. Or had experiences where the doctors say, like, if we had not gotten to this within these amount of minutes, you would not have this body part, or you would not be alive or anything like that. So I'm just freaking out. At this point, by the time I drove to my hospital, I realized it was a uterus thing. I didn't think I was going to die. I really just thought I was going to lose my uterus. And when I say I'm bawling, I'm in pain, but like mentally I'm freaked out. So finally I find a parking space, and I think the time I was looking, honestly, probably was only 30 seconds. I was just so freaked out. It seemed like forever. So then I realized that I had to walk from the parking structure to the hospital, which is probably like, a good 50, 60 steps, which may not seem like a lot, but it was a lot for me considering I couldn't walk. So I walked, and then there were people outside. Like, I went, it was like 5, 6, so it was pretty busy. It was people outside, like, at night, and I'm sitting here walking myself to the emergency room, and I could not walk. Like, I was walking like this, guys, like this. Like, I could not sit up, and it wasn't like I couldn't sit up for the pain. Like, it was the pain too, but I physically felt paralyzed to, like, even get up, like, even if I tried, because as much of a mercy as I am, I still had embarrassment, and I was like, I don't want people to see me walking like this. Like, I don't want them to think something else, like my butt ruptured or something. So I'm like, I could not stand up straight. So I get into the doctor's office, and I'm like obviously in pain. And so this lady goes, so you got your driver's license, like acting all calm. Like, I'm like, and okay. So I'm like, yeah, my driver's license. So I pull out my purse. I'm like obviously bent over in pain. And so I'm like trying to scream. And she's like, and this is when, what was that going around? Was it Ebola? Whatever, we'll say Ebola. I think that was going around, and it was on news. So she was asking me if I had that, or if I had traveled out the country, or had I been to Africa or anything like that. And it was just like, can you please at least get me a wheelchair and then ask these questions? So I'm in a wheelchair, or at least like taking me somewhere. So after she gets done answering the questions, she must like buzz somebody in, because soon as she answered the questions, they opened doors for me and they're like, come on. And when I say I was in pain, I was in pain. They didn't even take me to like the basic room where they asked like, what's your pain level? They took me straight to like a room. And so I'm just in this pain. I'm trying to pretend like I'm not in pain. And so every time I go to the doctors and I'm like there for like a health reason, I try to pretend like I'm not as in much pain as I am. And although this seems backwards, the reason why I do it is because I don't like, I know they get tons of patients that probably have the same thing, and I don't want to be the one that, you know, acts the most obnoxious about like what I have, or like, you know, I want to show that I have a strong pain tolerance. You know what I mean? And also at the same time, like, you know, in the small case that it was something minor, I wouldn't want, you know, to be freaking out about something that's like not that big of a deal. And they'd be like, she acted a fool and she only had this. And so like that's why I try to stay calm, and I think it calms my anxiety if I'm not like freaking out. And so the doctors get in, they start asking me all these types of questions, and you know, are you sexually active, blah blah blah, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. And so I'm just like, come on, can we get these tests done? Like I'm in pain, obviously. Like I'm trying not to act like I'm in a lot of pain, but you can see I'm in pain. And so they're asking me questions, and I'm like trying not to pretend I'm in pain. I'm like, like I'm like doing these weird moans. So they're like, so are you? And I'm just like interrupting them with these like loud moans. It's like I was so serious, and I was so frustrated. I'm like, can we get a doctor in? So finally a gynecologist comes in, and I'm like, I knew his gynecologist by the questions he was starting to ask, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm about to get a pap smear. Because I mean, it was my reproductive area that was like causing the pain. And so they felt on my appendix, and they like ruled out appendicitis. And I'm like, oh crap, I'm about to get a pap smear. So like, you guys, I haven't had a lot of dick like really in my life. A lot of different dicks, I'll say that. Because you could have a lot of one dick, right? Okay. A lot of different dicks. You wouldn't be able to tell by the way I act, but like in all honesty. Anyways, so I'm like, I'm about to get a pap smear. And my last, I think I had it 2 times before, and my last 2 experiences were, they could be their own story time. We'll say that. So I'm like, I'm so like nervous. I'm freaking out, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm almost thinking more about the pap smear than the pain I'm going through. So he's like, okay, we'll be due back. Well, you know, he's like, we're gonna go look and, you know, check out the uterus and stuff like that. And I'm just freaking out. Like I start breaking out in sweats. My heart rate starts going up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Like, like I was like, I can't do this. Like I really can't. So he comes back, and they start like, if you're a man, you're going to learn something today. If you're a woman, you know what I'm talking about. So he gets out all the tools, and he takes like, okay, so what they put up you during a pap smear, it's like the smallest version. I promise you. They have big and smaller like sizes. The smallest version is like this big. And then, wait, I'm not done. Not only is it that big, but once they put it in you, they spread it apart, like wider. They widen it, like inside your vagina. Like they do, spread your vagina apart. And then they take like a, those long, the Q-tips, you guys. I can have nightmares just from how long the Q-tips are. I promise you, the Q-tips are like this long. Like they're longer than your cervix. Like they feel longer than your cervix. Like they're Q-tipping past your cervix. And so because they need to open it a little bit to put the Q-tip in there. And it's just the most horrifying feeling ever. So he starts like lubricating it, and I'm like, I can't, like I'm just like shaking, like. And they're like, are you cold? Like, because at this point I have already changed into my gown, and I'm like completely nude under my gown, so they could do like, you know, run you know, the test, do the pap smear, whatever. So they're like, are you cold? Because they figure like, oh, she's shaking, she's cold. I'm like, no, I'm not cold. And so so the two nurses were about to leave the room, and the doctor like peeped his head. Once he had all his tools set, he left again, and then he came back and he peeped his little head in. He was like, hey, can my medical assistant come in? And he's like, I'm, you know, like not a medical assistant, but I guess he was like a student in training. And I was like, whatever. Like, I didn't care. Like, number one, I'm in pain. Number two, I've always been like open about body. I feel like a body is just a body. Like, it is what it is. Like, I'm all for women like breastfeeding with no covers, and like I feel like a body is a body and you should take care of it, but like what's on the inside is most important. And especially for educational and medical reasons, I really don't care. So I'm like, so when the guy came in, I was like, whatever, like I don't care. But then when his, you know, like trainee, I guess, was in there, I realized like it's no way he could have been a doctor like in training. He had to be like a medical assistant, because he looked young, like young, and he kind of acted a little young, like a tiny bit. Like he looked like 23-ish, 24, which medical assistants can be that age. And so he came in and like he started like smirking a little, like trying to hide a smirk. He's supposed to be professional, so I like peeped that, so I'm like ignoring that. So I like tell the nurses, I said, yeah, I have to say something. I was like, last time I got this done, like, you know, I did not do well. It was very painful. And so the doctor, like, he's trying to be considerate. He's like, is this the smallest? Like, you know, I forget the name of the exact tool. Maybe I should look it up. Siri, what is the tool they use pap smears for? This, what they were putting in me, if you wanna. This is what they were putting in me. Is it focused? Except for it was bigger and they like spread it apart in there. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I was like, I can't. So he had a clear one. He's like, is this the smallest one he had? And they're like, yeah, that's the smallest one. And so I'm looking at that like, that is not small. I'm like so irritated. I'm like freaking out, and he's just like, don't tense up, because that, you know, just makes it worse. Then his like little trainee was back there like like folding his lips, like. So they put me in the stirrups, and you know, my legs all the way up like this, like they're like all the way up like this. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I'm like trying to act calm, and like soon as he tries to put it in, I'm like, oh my god. Like, I know somebody wanted to laugh, because like it wasn't like, I'm in pain. I'm like, oh my god. So I'm holding the bars of the like ER bed, because you know they have bars so they can wheel them from place to place. So I'm holding on to them like super tight, and I'm like, my feet are in stirrups. Like, it literally looks like I'm giving birth, because first of all, I'm like groaning and moaning. Second of all, when I say I was holding, usually when I have IVs in, I'm really scared to like bend my arms. I know I'm not the only one who's like that. Like, I'm scared to like bend my arms all crazy, because I don't want to like bust the blood vessel, rupture that blood vessel, which happens. Or that's why they flush it with like saline sometimes, to check if it hasn't been ruptured and just clean it out. But I just get scared to like move it, so I never like move. When I have an IV, I promise you, like my hands stay like this. I was in so much pain. I was like, fuck that. Like, I was holding on like this, and I'm like, and he he's like, he was trying to ask me like, does that hurt? Does that hurt? I'm like, I'm thinking in my head like, it all hurts. Like, and then he like spread the thing apart, of course, and I'm just like, and so like I'm just like getting pissed in my head, and I'm like, you know, it almost made me forget about my ovarian cyst pain. And so I'm just thinking like, okay, what's the verdict? What's going on? You know, like, you know, what was that? Like, and so he's like, so after he took it out, I guess that was just testing to see if I had any STDs or anything like that. And so after that was done, he was like, okay, so he like took his finger, you know, got the gloves, took his finger, and he's like, okay, tell me if it hurts. And I'm like, ow, that hurts. And he was like, Ma'am, that's just the pressure from my finger. It was just his finger. Like, that's it. And I was like in pain. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, and that's why I try not to not even overreact, but that's why I try to like act like I'm not in as much pain when I'm in the doctor's, because I don't want to look like a wimp. And those were one of those times where like he was like, let me know if you're in pain. I'm like, I'm in pain. And it was just his finger. So I looked like a huge wimp. And so like he's feeling around. He was like, does this side hurt? Does that side hurt? And I'm like, all of it hurts. I'm in pain. So he was like, well, whatever. We're going to, run tests, make sure I have STDs. We're going to run, a mandatory pregnancy test. They're going to, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, my mind's going all over the place. I'm like, I just want these tests done. I want to find out what's happening. So in my head, I'm freaking out because I'm like, you guys are sitting here wasting time doing all this stuff. I want to know what's wrong. So I had figured out that my uterus wasn't collapsing because, they would have noticed, when they, disturbed my vagina and her peacefulness. So they, rolled me out the bed, which I feel like is so awkward. Like, it's so awkward. And I make people feel awkward all the time, okay? It's awkward because like all the medical people are like in the hall and you're just rolling in the bed. Like you're just rolling in the bed and someone's pushing you. So you're just laying in bed, like going past everyone. It's like, and then everybody's staring at you, looking at you like, what's wrong with her? What's wrong with her? What's wrong with her? Like even the people that have been trained there, like have been doctors, everybody's staring at you like getting pushed through the hallway. Like, ooh, what's wrong with her? Like, okay. Or it's kind of awkward because it's like it's groups of doctors like talking together and like someone's like, the medical assistant who's like pushing you is like, excuse me. And so you have to get like pushed through. They have to like move out your way and they all kind of look at you, wait for you to go past, like, and you're just like, it's nothing you can do because you're not walking, so you're just in bed like or like especially when you're on the elevator and it's like and then you're with the medical assistant, so it's like you have no conversation with them, so you're like, it's so awkward. So I finally get to the scanning room and they make me swallow these nasty liquids and they lay me on the bed, and she said, I don't know what she said. I think she said she had to hook up some stuff to me or something like that, something crazy. I don't remember. I was kind of in a blur and I hadn't had any medication at this point, but everything was going on. And I remember telling her, I'm like, look, I'm not wearing any panties because I think she was trying to lift up, untie my hospital gown and like lift it all the way up. I just like told her, it was like other people in the room too. I told her, but they were all in the medical field. And so I told her, I'm like, look, I'm not wearing any panties. And she was like, oh, it's okay, I won't look. I'm like, no, I don't care if you look. I'm just warning you so you won't be like in any shock. Like, and she like smiled, but I was not laughing. Like, I was so serious. I'm like, let's get this test done. I want to find out what's wrong. So I get back in the room from the scan, and they like, push me on back in the room, and and I'm like, my heart is beating because they're taking a while to bring back my results, and I'm just freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is it? So then a doctor comes in and he's like, I promise you, another doctor that wasn't the doctor that like was my gyno, my doctor said, what we think it is ovarian cyst. And he said, what happens is we think you had a large rupture. It doesn't seem like a small rupture. It seems like a large rupture. And I started thinking, I'm like, holy crap. What if that was the heaviness? Like, that's when it clicked. I said, what if that was the heaviness sitting on my stomach? And as crazy as it sounds, like at the moment he came in, he's like, we may need to perform surgery. He said, if it ruptured your ovaries, we do need to perform surgery and either remove that ovary or like, and he started going through all the options. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I only have 2 ovaries. What if it did rupture one? Then that means I'm 50% less likely to have a child. So I'm just freaking out. I'm like, and I start asking all these questions. I'm like, do people who have ovarian cysts return? He's like, we don't know, but in some people they do return. And so I'm freaking out, like, oh my gosh, like, and, you know, you're always going to the worst scenario. So I'm like, that was a big rupture on my ovary, like sitting on my ovaries. I'm like, I'm going to have surgery. I'm going to have one of my ovaries removed. So like, I'm just freaking out. And ironically, my mom texted me and she's like, I haven't talked to you in a little bit. I'm concerned. What's going on with you? And it's kind of like nothing was going on with me up until like an hour or 2 hours previous. And she was like, and then she called me and it was like a missed call. And I answered her second call, you know, why no doctors were in there right after the man had told me I possibly might need surgery if it turns out to be, you know, my ovarian cyst that ruptured my ovary. And so I said, actually, I'm in the ER. So she's like, oh, I thought it was something. See, I felt it. It is my instincts. So she leaves her job and she's like, are you still at the doctor? And she seemed like all concerned. But when she got there, she was more concerned about herself. She was like, how late are we going to be here? And then she was on the phone like, yeah, girl. Yeah, because I'm here at the hospital with Jodi. Yep, she in the hospital again because I have something called POTS syndrome. And so that caused me to be in the hospital a lot, especially during my diagnosis when I didn't know what it was and I was fainting. So yeah, I had a lot of things where I was in the hospital. So for me to be in the hospital again, she's kind of like, oh yeah, and I also had cut my toe in half. And I had stepped on a piece of glass this large once and it went all the way up my foot. So it was those two scenarios and then, you know, fainting and just for my POTS syndrome. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, and the asthma. I think before that, I had like an asthma attack. I have a lot of health problems, guys. I had an asthma attack or something, and so, yeah, I had to get a lot of breathing treatment. So she's like, she's in the hospital again, blah, 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 blah. But it's kind of like at that point, I was really, like, afraid. I wanted support, and she wasn't. She just came to show up, like, and then she kept calling all her friends, like, yep, she in the hospital. Yep, she in here again. So I'm just, like, really, like, and so I'm kind of, like, annoyed. So the doctor comes back, and he's like, you know, all your results, you know, STD results, he like privately tells me, he's like, he tells my mom to leave like most doctors should. And he's like, oh, he like tells me like STD clear, pregnancy clear, blah, 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 blah. And so all I'm waiting for is the scan that I did. And so finally I get the scan. And they say it's, you know, what it, and I got talked to. The results came back and my mom's sitting in the room like, you know, on the phone talking about what time they come back with these results, when they got the results, when they, and then like she's like, what if you need surgery? And it's like, don't scare me when I need to be scared. She seemed concerned if I had to be have surgery, but then she's like, when they coming back, I need to get up. She has ADHD, I promise. And she's like, I need to get up. And then she's like in and out the room. She's like, when they coming? Peeking out the door. I'm like, peeking out the door is not going to make them come in the room. So she's just stressing me out. By this time, my pain has subsided. And so, you know, now I feel like, oh, why did I come to the hospital anyways? Because I'm not even in pain anymore. Because it's been hours, like 3 hours. I'm not even in pain anymore. You know, I'm only in pain when I move or something. So finally, the doctor comes in. She says what it seems like is ovarian cyst rupture. She said the cyst is no longer there. She said it didn't damage your ovaries. She said most ovarian cysts don't rupture your ovaries with it, but it is a chance of it happening. And she just talked about, you know, follow up with my gyno and stuff like that. And, you know, I was so thankful because, like, when I went to the hospital, I didn't know what was, you know, I didn't know what the outcome would be. So, you know, in a way, I did feel kind of like, oh my goodness, it was ovarian cyst rupture, but they like assure me, like, they're like, ovarian cysts are extremely excruciating. They're painful. You know, it's nothing to feel like, especially because it was your first. And they said, and they told me, they reassured me, they said, when you have ovarian cyst rupture, that is very painful. You do need to come to the ER. You're supposed to, because there is a chance it ruptured your ovaries with it, or it caused more damage than you think it would have caused. And so, they said you do need to come to the hospital actually to, you know, find out. And so I said, okay. So I felt reassured about that. And they said you do have to come to the ER because a regular like doctor's office wouldn't have the proper like you know, scanning material. Like every doctor's office or clinic doesn't have like all the things they have to like test and make sure everything's okay. So, you know, I was relieved, and at this point I'm like starving hungry. So I asked my mom, like, can she give me some McDonald's? She's like, no, Slay, I don't feel like getting McDonald's. And I'm just kind of like, I just went through all of this and you can't even give me some McDonald's. Like, really, Mom? And me and my mom don't live together or anything else. And we were never, like, really super close. I mean, I think our relationship's improving, but that's another story for another day. But, like, I'm like, really? So, like, I get up from the bed and I feel really sore. When I say really sore, like, I can't describe the amount of sore. Like, I'm waddling. Like, I'm taking baby steps. Like, you know, I still can't fully stand up straight, but I'm standing up kind of straight. You know, just a little arch. Just a little bit tilted forward. I'm just walking slow. I was very sore. Like, I can't, you know, like when I sat down, it was very sore. It was kind of like something had came out, but nothing came out of my vagina. It was just sore and tender. And I was thankful, but I was kind of like, oh, that was like crazy. And then I got in my mom's car, and because I told her I didn't remember where I parked, and so I said, drive me to the parking structure because I can't walk all the way there. And she's like, then how did you walk all the way to the hospital? And I explained to her, like, I thought I was fighting for my life or fighting for my uterus. Like, I thought that it was walk in that hospital or suffer greatly. So, you know, I had that determination, but right now I'm in pain. I'm not going to push it. And so, and you know, if you don't know this about me, I'm really not one in for modern medicine, even though I went to the ER unless of emergency, and that was emergency. But you know, I'm the type of person that uses herbs and supplements and stuff like that. So they gave me, you know, ibuprofen, you know, a really strong dose. And they gave me some other crazy medicine. I don't know the name of it. It was something crazy, and I like didn't want to take it. I refused to take it. So I just decided to like deal with the pain. And they also offered me pain meds when I was in the hospital, you know, while I was going through the pain. I declined it. So, I mean, that's just how I am as a person. So I'm in pain, and, you know, we get to my mom's car, and like, she's like, where'd you park? And I'm like, I think I parked here. And we go in that parking lot, it's not there. And I'm like, I don't know where I parked then. And then she gets mad at me, and she's frustrated, and she's all yelling at me and stuff. And I'm kind of like, I was like, that's a blur to me. I don't remember where I parked because I was in pain. My only focus was just getting to the hospital. So like only 3 minutes later we found out where I parked, and then she started yelling at me, and it's just like, and she couldn't even give me a sound. Just kind of like I had no groceries in my house at that point because I planned to go grocery shopping the next morning, but I figured I'd be too sore the next morning. And so I just wanted a sandwich to hold me over the night because I didn't really have anything else to eat that night. And since being awake so much, I was so hungry. She's like, no. And I'm just like, I just got mad at her, and I was like, you're selfish. And then like I left and went home by myself. And yeah, I mean, you know, part of the story is super funny because there's the parts that like I didn't just tell are kind of funny. So while all this like craziness was going on, I noticed that like some of the doctors like would like, once they got to my room, you know, the curtain was like a little bit open, and so once they like got near my room, they would slow down and kind of like peek in, and I'm kind of like, what are they peeking in my room about? And then it happened the second time, like, what are they peeking in my room about? And it was happening after my pap smear, and I'm kind of like, and it wasn't even like, oh, they're just trying to see what room it is. No, because doctors know what room they're supposed to go to. And they weren't trying to come in. They were just peeking, like you know, kind of like glancing in my room. And I'm kind of like, what are people talking about? Like, what's the word on the street? Like, what's going on? Like, you know. And so I was thinking about it, like, okay, I just got a pap smear, and I was like, oh my gosh, my tattoo. I have a tattoo in that general area, and it's quite controversial, and it was kind of not on my mind at all, you know, because I was in so much pain. But then once I left, I figured out why, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was probably my tattoo. Like, that they'd be like, you know. And then secondly, I was wearing this stupid hat. I have a picture of me in the hospital that day. I'll plug it in right now. Yeah, I was wearing that stupid hat, and I realized I did not take it off the whole entire time. And I mean, it it was an experience, and I was thankful, and it really did make me consider, like, wow, I may not always be able to have kids, and I do have a lot of medical problems, and a couple of them do risk my chances of having children. So I think at that point I really started thinking, like, maybe I'm not the type of person that can wait till I'm 30. So I never had planned on waiting till I'm 30, but sometimes life happens and things, get in your way and you end up waiting till you're 30. But that kind of put in my mind, like, maybe I'm just not one of the candidates for that. And I mean, I left happy and with a whole new realization. And unfortunately, I was one of those few people who had returning ovarian cyst. And I got another. And if you want to hear that story, that is a whole different story time. And as crazy as that is, that one's the only reason I told this one is just in case you like this one, I would tell the other one, because that one is more crazy than the first. it is wild because this ovarian cyst, I got to the hospital once my ovarian cyst had already ruptured. It had ruptured when I was in my living room. And so I was, in pain, but the pain was, I couldn't tell at that moment, but it was declining because it had already ruptured. This case, I went to the hospital when my ovarian cyst was still there and it was about to rupture. So I was feeling the pains of pre-rupture and rupture. And that's some pain. So I was in full-fledged, I was acting like I was in labor. I was breathing. I was like it was hilarious. So, but it had sad moments and scary moments and hilarious moments, just like this story time. I just wanted to share this with you. And if you have an ovarian cyst, maybe we share this, thing together, or, you wanted to hear someone else's experience. And I hope you enjoyed the story time, and make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure to hit that thumbs up to let me know which type of videos are your favorite, because I will lean towards filming those type of videos. So definitely hit thumbs up on the videos you enjoy. And if this is your first time watching me, you can check out my other videos. I'm uploading every day of November, naughty November. And when it's not November, I upload every Thursday. I hope you enjoy this video. I probably already said that. It's 10 p.m. And I just went on and on about talking about my vagina. So, I'm a little out of it. And, just read, how when you talk about story, all the emotions that you experienced during that time come back up. So that's what's happening to me now. So I'm feeling some type of way, but it's not negative. I just feel all the emotions. So anyways, I will see you guys tomorrow, and I love you. Bye.